Hello, everybody. I chose the research article, The Lived Experience of Nurses Caring for Patients with COVID-19 in Iran, a Phenomenological Study. So, this research study interviews nurses when COVID-19 was very prevalent. Um, and it just talks about like how the viruses broke out and their own experience. Um, Working with patients who had COVID-19 and when the virus just spread rapidly and we were all on shutdown. So, as I'm answering the questions, I'll state the questions and I'll answer them. The first question, did the author identify which approach they were using? Yes, there were multiple authors in this article, um, but they did explicitly say that it was a descriptive phenomenological study. They also further noted that they ground their philosophy and Husserl descriptive phenomenology. They use bracketing and other things like that for their studies. The second question is, was there a clear research question, and what was it? There was a clear research question, as stated in their abstract, which I'm going to quote in their abstract, to explore the lived experiences of nurses caring for patients with COVID-19 in Iran. This obviously has a very clear objective, as they are researching nurses specifically in Iran that are dealing with COVID-19 patients. It's definitely qualitative work, as they're observing their lived experiences. And so, yeah, it goes over the research questions like, what are the lived experiences of nurses who are working with COVID-19, specifically with their own mental health? How are they doing, the nurses and also the patients themselves? And how is this virus affecting the nurses' well-being and their own families? The third question, was there a clear positionality statement? And how well was it constructed or related to the project? There wasn't really a clear positionality statement, and it doesn't appear to include a section about that. So yeah, I mean, it is a phenomenological study, and the research often benefits from reflexivity. And so as we can see, like in the study, that bracketing is invoked. So yeah, was there a clear method section? How was sampling done? How were data collected and treated? There were a few clear methods, or a method section that actually went into great detail. But for sampling wise, they did purposeful sampling, and they just collected a lot of like rich information from all of these nurses in Iran, especially those who were in departments specifically for COVID-19 patients. So not just your regular ICU nurse or just like not nurses with like labor and delivery, but specifically those who worked with COVID-19 patients. So yeah, they were collecting most of the research from those nurses, which was very rich, because it definitely was prevalent in their own work. The data collection, they were obviously collected via interviews one-on-one, and the data treatment and analysis, it was just like a standard phenomenological test and procedure. But yeah, what kinds of data were used? Only interviews, participant observation, triangulation. The only data that I found when reading this article was just interviews, which are still very helpful for qualitative research studies. And were there any kind of member checking findings? Yes, the authors do claim to have done member check, and they also indicate that more than 2 of the researchers checked codes. How effective was the findings section written? What were the themes? What did you think of how themes were titled and described? They did 3 main themes, which were the mental health condition, emotional condition, and care context. And I think the themes were very helpful with the research, as they all comply with the data that's being collected. I think all of these themes are very important, and I think from an outsider, we can definitely see that that was an important part of COVID-19. And yeah, but the overall impressions, I thought that there were a lot of strengths in this research paper. Their methods are clearly described, the findings are relevant, consistent. I think this study just gives a really huge voice for nurses, as they were very, very needed in this time. I think documenting their own lived experiences are so, so important. But yeah, I think one of their limitations or weaknesses was probably only using interviews as their data collection. I think they could have used triangulation, just other sorts of data collection. But other than that, it was a great research study, and I definitely learned a lot about their nurses' lived experiences during this time of COVID-19.